Bear down, Chicago Bears. I hope every one of you are having a great morning. Today it is. And by the way, let's pull this up real quick. It says 41 years ago today, but this is actually 38 years ago. The Chicago Bears complete one of the most dominant seasons of all time, beating the Patriots 46 to 10 in the Super Bowl. And then the question of the day would be, is this the greatest NFL team ever? And I would venture to say that this certainly ranks up there in what I would say the top 3 to 5 teams of all time. For me, it's going to be the best. But I'm sure there's going to be some arguments being made about some of the old San Francisco teams, some of the old New England teams. There's probably some arguments to be made by some of these guys about who has a better team. But to me, the Chicago Bears 1985 team is going to be one of the most dominant teams of all time. So, shout out to the 1985 Bears, the Super Bowl shuffle. We complain all the time that the McCaskey family seems to live off of the memory of this team, but it's one of the greatest. So, what are you going to do? Anyway, so we've got some updates, we've got some news, we've got some interesting things that are happening right now in Chicago. So let's try to break this down as quickly as we possibly can. Moving to the very first thing, and that is that the Bears are hiring Kerry Joseph as their quarterback's coach. Now, I would prefer Chase Daniel, but Kerry Joseph as the coach is the Seahawk assistant quarterback coach for the past 2 seasons, and he's coming onto the staff with Shane Waldron. And that means that Shane Waldron got his guy. He now has the guy that he wanted. And that, of course, I don't think that really checks any way, positive, negative for Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. I don't think that this move actually tips the hat in one direction or another. I think we've already done enough tipping with, Matt Eberflus defending Justin Fields, Ryan Poles saying that he's capable, but then we see the talent on the field, and we see the insistence, by the way, from NFL talking heads constantly that you have to draft Caleb Williams because they think that Caleb Williams is a generational talent. And I'm going to tell you about another generational talent in just a little while. And you're going to look at it and you're going to remember it and you're going to know it. And you're going to be like, wow, that was a big mistake. And by the way, there are plenty of them to go over. But the next thing up, Ron Rivera joined the Bears Banter podcast. Go listen to that at your leisure. And says that Montez Sweat is the best player for his team. After spending the last 3.5 years with Sweat, Rivera, who focuses on the defensive side of the ball, would know him well. He says it's not just about Sweat's performance, but how he elevates everyone around him, something Bears fans learned quickly after he was acquired back in October. You have to now account for him, Rivera said, of teams facing Chicago moving forward. Teams, when they're game planning and they sit there and they look at Montez and say, we have to be able to answer that question. We have to turn this to the center to him all the time. We have to put a tight end over there. We have to rig our protection to him. And now they forget about the other guys. Or because of his great abilities to get upfield, he forces the quarterback to step up into the pocket. And now the interior pass rushers now affect the passing game. His effect isn't just what he does, it's how it affects the other guys. For the last 3 days, guys, we've been talking about very specifically about how important it is for Montez Sweat to be able to get on and around the edge and how you have to have 2 people to collapse that pocket. Yannick Ngakoue benefited from this as well before he got injured. And DeMarcus Walker, oh my God, I couldn't remember his name for a second. DeMarcus Walker also benefited from this greatly. The problem was Justin Jones, Gervon Dexter, they were not collapsing the interior of the line. And that is exactly what you're expecting to see. And that's what we have to get better at, which is why Chris Jones, by the way, is on the radar as one of the big gets for the defense, along with Chase Young, which we're going to talk about in just a few. But he forces the quarterback to step up into the pocket, and now the interior pass rushers now affect the passing game. Here's the problem. The problem is the Chicago Bears did not do that. once you collapse the pocket and the quarterback steps up, there has to be somebody in his face. And too many times the Chicago Bears didn't have somebody in his face. Now, we saw great strides by Gervon Dexter. We even saw good strides by Zach Pickens towards the end of the year. Justin Jones, however, he was not that good. And to be fair, it could be scheming. It could be that we needed another linebacker. It could be that we just needed to blitz a little bit more to create a little bit more pressure coming from the inside. And maybe we didn't do that. And that could be part of the problem. And maybe we'll see that start to develop over the next little while, I want to say, as we see who the defensive coordinator is. And then maybe we'll see some interesting schemes. By the way, I saw some videos yesterday, and I saw some, and it reminded me, Vic Fangio is no longer employed and is now looking for a job. And I'm not saying that Vic Fangio is in the running, but sometimes you look at it and you just want to run it back because Vic Fangio has such a remarkable impact on the heart and soul of the Chicago Bears defense for so many years. So shout out to Vic, wherever you are. We appreciate everything that you did. Now, moving on. NFL executives believe that the Bears will land Chase Young in free agency. Now, this just really plays out as one of the best possible scenarios for this team. Chicago Bears have some needs to address in the offseason, obviously, and that's going to include largely an edge rusher. While Chicago acquired stud Montez Sweat in a trade with the Washington Commanders, they are still in need of a power rusher opposite. If the Bears address edge rushing in free agencies, there's some big names slated to hit the open market, and those are Brian Burns, Josh Allen, Daniel Hunter, and Chase Young. But Young played with Sweat for 4 years in Washington, and they were a potent 1-2 punch off the edge. Could you see that reunion? And it's going to be expensive. So that's the question. And as of right now, the Bears have $46 million in market cap space. That's without making any moves so far on the season. So with $46 million, which is about ninth in the league, by the way. So with the cap space, you could 100% sign Montez Sweat. So it's not out of the realm that this happens. So Chicago, in its effort to bolster its pass rush, evaluated both Young and Sweat in the months leading up to the deadline. Sweat landed a 4-year, $98 million extension with the Bears, who could spend more money in free agency to sign a pass rusher such as Young. Young, like Sweat, was traded at the trade deadline. He landed with the San Francisco 49ers, where he totaled 2.5 sacks on top of the 5 that he had with the Commanders. So bringing in a guy with 7.5 sacks, and the Sweat made a significant impact with the Bears on defense. And look, to have his guy back would be a tremendous get for the Chicago Bears. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you want to see Chase Young wearing Chicago Bears outfit next year and rushing the passer? And then what do the interior linemen look like in that regard? Are we able to go out and get somebody like a Chris Young? Could Zach Pickens and could Gervon Dexter be the answers? We're gonna look at the lineup for the team, by the way, and we're gonna try to plug some of these positions and try to fill some of the positions with some of these players, by the way. And there are now an insider, and this is Brett Albright, by the way, revealing Chicago Bears' true intentions. And the number one pick is not for sale, is basically what he said. And he's saying it to anybody and everybody who will listen. Despite that, we got that us out here, talking heads, make our claims about what we think the Bears could do or should do or would do, or what would, what could possibly or potentially happen. He's disagreeing with any and everybody in that regard. And what he says is that the Bears are going to do, they're not going to do anything but what they've already got planned, which he says is they're going to go with Caleb Williams no matter what. So he says, trade the sink for Caleb Williams. It's the only way. And he says you have to have a partner willing to let you trade to number one, and you don't, then the ammunition to get, and you don't have that either. And he's talking about getting to that position for somebody else. And then you have everyone is saying that this, but Caleb has said he doesn't want to play for the Bears. Looks like a standoff. And Benjamin Albright says Guys, Caleb Williams never said this ever. People on the internet said it, and you believed them. And then Caleb Williams absolutely wants to be the first pick. It's just not going to be the Bears making that pick. And Benjamin Albright says it'll be the Bears. He is definitely adamant that it will be the Chicago Bears that are making that pick. The overall number one. Albright is among the most accurate insiders in the business. He has the Los Angeles Chargers hiring. He had the Los Angeles Chargers hiring Jim Harbaugh a full month before anybody else. His connections are strong. So him saying the Bears have no interest in moving off the one spot says everything. It means Poles fully intends to reset the quarterback clock with a player of his choosing. That player appears to be Caleb Williams. It also means Fields will be traded at some point in March or April, securing the Bears a probable second-round pick. This may anger some fans, but it isn't a surprise. Poles gave Fields 2 full seasons to show he had the necessary traits to be a long-term guy. Yes, the circumstances weren't ideal. He didn't have a great supporting cast in 2022, and his coaching was never ideal either, but the lack of consistency as a passer, combined with securing the number one pick, has sealed his fate. So that's what they are saying as insiders for the Chicago Bears for what is going on. And then finally, former Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry is going to interview for jobs on the defensive staffs of both the Philadelphia Eagles and Chicago Bears, per some inside sources. Philadelphia will be first. And look, Joe Barry's actually a good get. However, he's not going to be warmly received here. I think, we're tired of Luke Getsy and people like that. So I think you're going to see the Bears, Chicago Bears probably are. I don't know what the team is going to do, but I think the fan base is looking for that not to happen. I think that, we're looking to move on and not just pick up quote unquote Green Bay leftovers. So if you think that Green Bay leftovers or having somebody like that on the team is going to be good for the team, let me know in the comment section, because I just don't feel like this is optimal. At least, and look, by the way, if you're going to do this, sure. But at the same token, if you're going to get rid of a fan favorite quarterback and then bring in the enemy defensive coordinator so that he can not do a job like Luke Getsy did not do a job, then you're probably setting yourself up for a lot of negative feedback from the fan base. And at some point, I think this team needs to at least respect this fan base in a way that we really haven't seen for a long period of time. Give us the players that we want, give us the people that we want, et cetera, and make a compromise, make the fan base happy. And look, people will embrace Caleb Williams if he is in fact the guy. People will obviously embrace Justin Fields, thinking that he's the guy, but people will embrace Caleb Williams. They will think that he's a great guy, a great player. And by the way, there's no reason to think that there's any sort of problems with him attitude-wise or anything like that. He wants to win. He's a tough competitor. He makes all the throws. He checks a lot of boxes. So hopefully this is going to be as we develop. And by the way, this is not set in stone. Just because Benjamin Albright said it does not make it factual. But if that is the case, then shout out. Maybe, just maybe, we'll see something good. Now, free agency. We want to talk about that for just a few minutes, because these are the 19 Bears slated to hit NFL free agency over the next few months when it opens, and that's going to be Jalen Johnson is going to be number one. Now, we can assume at this point that we're going to be re-signing Jalen Johnson, or at least we should have reason to believe that he is re-signable. Darnell Mooney, I don't know that Darnell Mooney stays. I can't see a situation in which he would want to stay. I would think that he would want to get back out there. In fact, let me back up a second. It could be that he doesn't feel that Justin Fields not reading defenses as quickly doesn't give him the right chance to succeed. But if the Bears are in fact moving on, it is possible that we get Darnell Mooney on a cheap contract for a while, and something good might happen with Darnell Mooney. So we're going to leave that one open for right now and say that, there's a possibility that he comes back. Justin Jones is an unrestricted free agent. And, I think that there's probably a lot of argument that he needs to be replaced. Yannick Ngakoue, I think Yannick Ngakoue was having a nice end to his season and had really started to come together, and Montez Sweat had probably turned him into or given him a little more opportunity by virtue of commanding so much attention. So it is possible that Yannick Ngakoue is a serviceable, he'll probably be a backup, but it is possible that you could bring him back in. I just don't know that the contract on him is going to be favorable for the Bears, so he might be lost. Deontay Foreman, I really think that he'll probably work fairly cheap. He's on the downside of his career. I don't know that he's looking for a change. It'll be interesting to see whether or not we can keep him. But the other thing is, at some point, I think the Bears are going to have to settle on a number one. And I don't know that Deontay Foreman is going to want to be a number two. And I think Khalil Herbert is really showing that he wants to be that number one. And in fairness, Roschon Johnson, with 38 receptions and good running, it's kind of hard to not have him as a number two. So possibly we might have seen the last of Deontay Foreman, but I would love to see this guy come back to the team. I think he would have to accept a lesser shared role, but I don't know for sure. Lucas Patrick, he's out. He's got to go. We need an interior lineman, that offensive interior lineman that can make that move. At some point, maybe Lucas Patrick was potentially the guy, but not anymore. We're going to need Connor Williams, Biadasz coming out of Dallas. There's plenty of options at center. We've got to get somebody like that. Patrick Scales, long snapper. I assume that's pretty inexpensive to pick up. I think we'll be fine there. Robert Tonyan, I can't see how the loss of Tonyan weakens this team in any way. I would imagine through free agency we can pick somebody up. We're going to actually look at the depth chart in just a few minutes, and we'll kind of look at that and see if that's something that maybe just maybe we would want to hold on to him. But so many people remember that moment, and you guys know what moment that was. So many people remember that moment. They remember the drops. They remember the bad, too much of the bad. So I think it'd be better for him and better for everybody involved if he were to move on. Also, you got Equanimous St. Brown. What does he do? I think he would come back on a cheap contract. So I think that there's an opportunity here to bring him in as a backup. But, obviously you got to do something more with the receiving core. The wide receiving core needs a big upgrade. And we're going to talk about that big upgrade very, very shortly. Also, offensive lineman Dan Feeney, he was the backup at center. And so, does he go? Maybe you keep him as a backup. The one thing that I liked about him is even though he was having some struggles, even though he was not really catching on, he kept his head down. He worked with Justin Fields to get better and better and better. So in a backup role or in part of the rotation, it's not a bad guy. So if you can get him cheap, then let's go. Dylan Cole at linebacker. Probably a good re-sign. Mercedes Lewis. Mercedes will probably take a very cheap contract to end his career and really take on kind of a tight end player coach sort of role. So be excited to see what he does. But, obviously he's a great blocker and it makes, everybody's life a little bit easier from that regard, especially on run plays. But you have to wonder how many more miles he's got left in the tank. The guy's 40 years old, by the way. So how much longer does he have and how effective can he continue to be? And Shane Waldron with two tight end sets creates a place for him, but it also tips your hat that you're going to have to run towards his direction versus Cole Kmet, who's also an okay blocker, but not a great blocker. So, there's an option there, and he probably will come back inexpensively. So we'll see. Then you got Rasheem Green. I think he's gone. Nathan Peterman probably gone. We'll pick up another backup quarterback. Greg Stroman probably out. Trent Taylor most likely gone. Colin Johnson most likely gone as well. So they'll have an opportunity to match as a restricted free agent Colin Johnson, but I don't know that it'll be worth it. And then you have Josh Blackwell, and I don't think so. I think he's probably gone as well. But this, by the way, is what the lineup currently looks like. And you've got your wide receiver DJ Moore, and then you've got Tyler Scott and Darnell Mooney. And this is it. This is the core right here. DJ Moore, Equinemius St. Brown, Colin Johnson, Tyler Scott, Velus Jones Jr., Joe Reed, Darnell Mooney, and Trent Taylor. So going to be a lot of changes in this lineup that you're about to see over the next few months. And then the question, of course, would become, what changes do you have to make? And this is where you need somebody like a Marvin Harrison Jr. And by the way, for anybody who's listened, I've said repeatedly that, Marvin Harrison Jr. and grab another one at the 9 pick. If you can get Malik Neighbors, I would prefer him over Rome Dunze. But if you can get Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got a transitional guy, and then shore up the rest of this receiving core. So, and I don't know if they're going to do that or not. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but you can look at this and you can see that is probably one of the biggest weaknesses that this team has. So, if optimally, you want right here, you want to, your situation is you want to replace Tyler Scott with Marvin Harrison Jr. You want to replace the slot wide receiver position with a Malik Neighbors, or really you want it to be Malik Neighbors. But you could also go with Rome Dunze in a 3 receiver set. And then you've got Velus Jones on your roster. Equinemius you might be able to sign. And then Darnell Mooney gone. Trent Taylor gone, most probably. But you're better overall with these moves. And then Colin Johnson, again, you got an opportunity to match his contract. So if you want to bring him back, you're able to bring him back. Then you have the tackle position, Braxton Jones. Would love to see an upgrade to Braxton Jones, but he's still under contract long-term. Would like to see get rid of Larry Borum. He is not helping in any way. He's the worst defender, one of the absolute worst left tackles in all of organized football. You got to just bite the bullet and say, look, this does not work for us. Get rid of Larry Borum. You bring in anybody at this point, and it would not be an upgrade necessarily, but it would be better than where we are. Tevin Jenkins has been great so far, so you're going to leave him in. Dan Feeney, he's out. Lucas Patrick, he's out. Cody Whitehair should be out. They should be releasing Cody Whitehair as well, but they might hold on to him as a backup just in case to bring in Connor Williams at this position. Nate Davis at right guard. Nate Davis has been an ineffective right guard. Probably need to look at moving both Lucas Patrick and Nate Davis on this line. If you were going to keep Braxton Jones, it would be fair enough to say he's not great, but he's been improving steadily, and you still got him under contract. So you might be able to go with it if you can shore up the center so that the quarterback can drop into the pocket, whoever that quarterback might be next year, and you're in good shape. But Nate Davis, Lucas Patrick, both of them really need to go. And then Darnell Wright, outstanding. Why we're not thinking about him as offensive rookie of the year is beyond me. But tight ends, Cole Kmet, Mercedes Lewis, I think comes back. Robert Tonyan is gone. Justin Fields, Tyson Bagent, Nathan Peterman. Nathan Peterman's gone. And by the way, it's not a huge possibility, by the way, but it is a possibility that you see Justin Fields and Caleb Williams on the team, that they don't trade Justin Fields, because most people are saying that he's only going to get a second round pick at this point. So, maybe it's just not going to be worth it for the trade. You leave him in, you let him run 6 to 7 or 8 games, and then you trade him by the trade deadline, and you let Caleb Williams come in. And if he's not able to do it, then you just put in Tyson Bagent for a short term until Caleb Williams is ready. That is potentially what's going to happen here. Then you have Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, and Travis Homer. You're looking good at running back, I want to say. We've talked about Saquon Barkley. We've talked about bringing back Deonta Foreman. Any one of these is a serviceable and a good move. But I want to say that even though I said repeatedly that there's a lot of talk about Saquon Barkley coming here, I don't have a problem with Khalil Herbert. I do not have a problem with neither Khalil Herbert or Roshan Johnson. Different types of runners, but I really think that Khalil Herbert had something to prove, and I think that he proved it in this last year. And then you have Kerry Blasingame at fullback, still under contract, so he's going to be back next year, or should be back next year. Then you have Montez Sweat as the left defensive end, Andrew Billings as the nose tackle, still under contract. So we're going to stick with him. But this is where it gets interesting. Justin Jones is going to be gone, but that's okay because Gervon Dexter is a serviceable replacement for Justin Jones. In fact, I feel like Gervon Dexter was outperforming Justin Jones towards the end of this season as he was getting more time. And then I think Zach Pickens also has an opportunity to become a much better player with a little bit more playing time in the rotation. Remember, both of those guys were rookies last year. So both of these guys have a good opportunity to perform. So then you have Yannick Ngakoue, and this is where DeMarcus Walker comes in, and he was the right defensive end towards the end of the season, subbing out with Dominique Robinson. Yannick Ngakoue gone as an unrestricted free agent. And by the way, this right here, this is where you bring in somebody like a Chris Jones in that tackle position so that he can come in and help someone in this rotation. If this works out right, then you're really giving Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter maybe another year or two of seasoning, if you will, to get a little bit better and make them part of a strong rotation. And that strong rotation with Andrew Billings and Chris Jones would only make this team stronger. In fact, Gervon Dexter, it might be argued, could be better than Andrew Billings at this point. So we'll see what happens there, but it looks like there's some opportunity. Then the right defensive end, this is where Chase Young comes into play. If Chase Young's come into play, Yannick Ngakoue does not get re-signed, and we are off to the races, and we've got a much better team. Then you have TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Dylan Cole's going to be out, so you're probably going to find yourself a linebacker in the draft, maybe, or you're just going to bring in somebody. Now, you can see that between your weak, middle, and strong side linebackers, Jack Sanborn, by the way, great. He's done a fantastic job this season as well. So you just want some backup for these guys. They've been really good, continuing to work well together and continuing to improve overall. And then you have your cornerback position, the left cornerback, Jalen Johnson. You got to get him re-signed. Terrell Smith is the backup. And look, I have no problem with Terrell Smith. I think Terrell Smith's a great guy and a great cornerback. As a matter of fact, I don't have a problem with him as cornerback, but he's no Jalen Johnson. I guess we should recognize that. Strong safety, Jaquan Brisker. That part is handled. Quindell Johnson as a serviceable backup. Eddie Jackson, I think we'll really need to release Eddie Jackson, even if Elijah Hicks becomes your starter. I don't think that we're worse off for that. But then you want to go out there and you want to find yourself a free safety, maybe in free agency, maybe in the draft, somebody who can replace Eddie Jackson, with the idea that he's just getting a little bit old and he's going to be when this is all said and done, guys, I want to say this: Eddie Jackson is a Chicago legend, and we should recognize that. And we should honor Eddie Jackson forever. But he has reached past his prime, and it's really time to shore that position up. I think that that's a moment of weakness right there, and I think that we can improve that position dramatically, athletically, if we move on from Eddie Jackson. Then you have Tyreek Stevenson. I mean, Tyreek came in. The only reason he's not looking as defensive rookie of the year is because of the team that he plays on, and we didn't win enough games. There's a lot of defenders out there that he outplayed that are in consideration for defensive rookie of the year. Then you have Jalen Jones, actually very serviceable. Greg Stroman, not so much, but he's not going to get much playing time. It'll be part of the rotation. And then at nickel, you have Kyler Gordon and you have Josh Blackwell. Josh Blackwell is a restricted free agent, so we have an opportunity to match that. And then down here, Patrick Scales, Trent Taylor. These guys are already up here in these rotations, so you're going to bring in a lot of different people that you can just bring in free agency. So I think that we're set. I think that this team is really, really set through free agency. Now let's go look at the draft real quick. And by the way, I think this is a strong team right now. And this is it. This is what I want to talk to you guys about. This is, I mean, sometimes you see stuff and it looks obvious, or maybe it doesn't look obvious, or, maybe you don't see it or something like that. But listen to this. 2007 was the last time a wide receiver as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. came out of the NFL draft. The team at number 1 overall fell in love with a generational quarterback, and that quarterback was Jamarcus Russell. The wide receiver that went at number 2 was Calvin Johnson Jr. So you could either take Cracky McCrack or you could take Megatron. That's how this ended up. That's how this draft went. When this draft went sideways, that's what we're dealing with right now. And now's the question. What do you do, right? You have your generational quarterback again in Caleb Williams, and it's crazy here. Blitnikoff award-winning Marvin Harrison Jr. At a skill position is so valuable to a team for so many years to come. And by the way, that does not mean anything bad against Caleb Williams. It means that I have blinders on in this regard, in that I don't trust a quarterback at number one. By the way, go look around the league. What number one quarterback, not named Matthew Stafford, I guess, is absolutely crushing the league? You know what I mean? I get a little bit scared and I get a little bit nervous when we're looking at these quarterbacks, because I think, a serviceable quarterback, a good quarterback, doesn't have to be the number one guy. It just feels. And by the way, let me say this: I like Chicago fan first. Bear down. I'm a Chicago fan first, so it doesn't have to be Justin Fields and it doesn't have to be Caleb Williams. I don't give a shit who the quarterback is. I just care that they can do the job. Right? They could be a second round pick or third round pick for all I care. I don't care. What I care about is winning. What I care about is the positivity, and I think that the positivity comes more from Marvin Harrison Jr. than it does from. And by the way, even again, if you don't move on originally, if you don't fall back from Caleb, you got to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, if you stick with Justin Fields, even if Justin Fields, it turns out is I mean, it's fair to say at this point, even though we love Justin Fields, he's been a great guy, he hasn't set the world on fire. So if that's the case, then if you stuck with him for the fourth year of that contract and you traded him midway through the year, and or if he did well, or if he just did mediocre, right, and the team is way better and we're playoff bound or something like that. Even if in that worst case scenario, right, you got options. You still have options. You're not without options. So, and there's going to be another quarterback coming along next year. So, and by the way, I do say that knowing that Ryan Poles and Maddie Eberflus' job is on the line with this decision. Some people would argue that Ryan Poles' job is not on the line because he's done a great job of building. Yeah, he's also brought in Matt Eberflus. He also brought in Luke Getsy. He also brought in Alan Williams. He also brought in all the people who are no longer here anymore. So when we say that, remember, he's also the guy that brought in Chase Claypool. So he's not without flaw. He's not without blame in some of these little instances. So there are some there are some pieces that are going to miss, and he's missed a few. We like the hits that he's done. We think that this year is going to be phenomenal. We think that the Bears are going to be the active team in free agency. We think that we're going to get this, fantastic sort of team, and I do believe that. But we should also at least be honest that it may not go as well as we think. And it could maybe not go very well. Maybe there was some talk, by the way. Let's go on to the mock draft, and we're going to come back to this. But there's a mock draft thing here that says that the Patriots are going to trade with the Bears, and they're going to take Justin Fields. So that just seems a little bit aggressive to me. The Chicago Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams, then Washington, and then the Chicago Bears are going to move up and get Marvin Harrison Jr., and they're going to trade Justin Fields. Like that, I don't think that nobody in this league values Justin Fields as a first round pick. And when we see these, remember, these are just mock drafts. They're not real. It's not really something that's going to happen. But it should be noted that there's no chance that New England is going to give up the 3 position to trade down to the 9 position here. New England Patriots to pick up Malik Neighbors. They don't have anybody who can throw the ball to Malik Neighbors. So I just don't think that this was a well thought out idea. But I do want to point out that they made some changes. They had the Chicago Bears taking Caleb Williams at number 1, but they also had the Washington Commanders taking Jaden Daniels instead of Drake May at number 2, and then Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Drake May going at number 4 to the Atlanta Falcons. And then number 5, Brock Bowers. This lineup is a little odd to me. But New England Patriots are not going to not have a quarterback next year, and they're not going to stick with Mac Jones. It just did not work out. So I don't think that this is a logical one or a reasonable one, but it's out there. So anyway, back to this one. That shows you that it's all about, or should all be about, making sure you get this guy, making sure that you get Marvin Harrison Jr. I just feel like this is the man, right? So it could be that you could make plays, you could draft down, you could make moves. So, but I mean, look, there's no circumstance in which Justin Fields is worth a number 1 pick at this point. And I say that as a Justin Fields fan. I would like to see Justin Fields have another season. Whether he does or not, I don't care. Whatever's best for the Chicago Bears, and we have to entrust in the people that we brought in, and that person is Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus. If they say it's time to move on, then it's time to move on, and all we can do is be sad about it because he's but I mean, there's just and look, to be fair, we haven't really discussed this very much, but what if, and just hear me out here. Let's go with national championship winners. What if you took Marvin Harrison, you drafted down from Caleb Williams? You let the Patriots, maybe you let somebody jump you for that slot, and then they take Caleb Williams, and then Jaden Daniels is gone, and then you take Marvin Harrison Jr., and then somebody takes Drake May, and then you move down the lineup, and then the next thing you know, at the number 8 or the number 9 position, you just take JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy just won a national title with Michigan and looked like a rock star the entire season. Like, what if you do something like that? I mean, and again, not a generational quarterback, but neither was Tom Brady. Neither was Patrick Mahomes, by the way. Remember, he was the 3rd quarterback selected overall. And go down the lists of quarterbacks around here. Again, other than Matthew Stafford, who's the number 1 guy who's absolutely crushing it and dominating the league? Trevor Lawrence, you could argue, was or has been pretty decent and might have some opportunity. But I mean, on the team that he's on, maybe not. But I mean, again, you look around, you don't find a whole lot of the first picks crushing it in the league. So, maybe that's just not in the cards. So, but let's move on. We got one more, and this is just, it's not really a topic so much as it's just a video that was released this morning by the Chicago Bears. And it's basically something about linebackers in Chicago. And if you saw today, the thumbnail that I made, I put a lot of linebackers into that thumbnail. A lot of greats. We had Mike Singletary on that list. We had Dick Butkus on that. We had Brian Urlacher. So you know where my heart lies. My heart lies in these linebackers, with my favorite, by the way, of course. I think most of you probably know right away, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and Nick Roach, in the years that they were together for the Chicago Bears. That was my favorite defensive time. And I know there are a lot of people who like the 85 Bears. There are a lot of people who, but look, I grew up in this time. I grew up, I got to see Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs. I could see Brian Urlacher never miss tackles. I got to see Lance Briggs knock people out. You know what I mean? I got to see Nick Roach scooping up and making big play after big play after big play. So linebackers in Chicago have a special place. You know what I mean? So shout out to the Chicago Bears for pointing this out. And I certainly hope that we see these guys roaming the field for the next year. But now let's get into chat and see what kind of mad stuff everybody's into right now. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this is the Marvin Harrison Jr. Chicago move, or do you think that this is going to end up being Caleb Williams? Who do you think that the Bears are going to end up picking? What's the what's the consensus here? I want an elite quarterback too, but I'd rather have a good team that can win multiple trophies. Yes. And, I mean, like, if you like Caleb Williams, then that's what you're thinking anyway. And I think that everybody is thinking that as well. Scroll says damn near every player in the NFL are draft picks, but there's very few franchise quarterbacks. There are some, right? And to be fair, like there's only really a few real franchise quarterbacks, and they're generally not number one draft picks. Um, NFL QB number one draft. NFL quarterbacks drafted number one overall. So you go down this list, and you're just looking right now. Baker Mayfield, do we consider him a success because he's still in the league? Jared Goff, do we consider him to be a success? Now, we didn't consider him to be a success. Maybe he's turning into that guy. Andrew Luck is already retired. Cam Newton had a short run where I think Cam Newton was probably just one of the most dynamic, not the greatest, but most dynamic players in the league, certainly. And Matthew Stafford. I would say that Matthew Stafford certainly, maybe not now, but was a franchise quarterback. You're not going to build around him. He's a little bit too old for that at this point. But Trevor Lawrence, Sam Bradford did not work out at all, but we drafted him. But I mean, look at the people that we did draft at the number one position. Joe Burrow. Let's call Joe Burrow there. But let's say that Steve Bartkowski, no. Michael Vick. We were fascinated. I think everybody's kind of fascinated with Michael Vick and his talent, but they weren't winning games. Not like they were setting the world on fire. And we have to be able to take a step back and look objectively at it, despite what may have happened with him in his career. He's a great player, but I don't know about not a franchise quarterback. Trevor Lawrence might be a franchise quarterback. Carson Palmer was for the Bengals at one point. Sam Bradford was not. Jamarcus Russell was not. David Carr was not. Drew Bledsoe, I would like to think that Drew Bledsoe was, but I mean, he was just dumped for Tom Brady. John Elway, Tim Couch absolutely was not. Alex Smith absolutely was not. Jeff George, I think was just kind of by virtue of being, I think it was Chargers and the Indianapolis Colts. I think by virtue of being on those teams, he was the guy, and he had a lot of talent, but I mean, didn't win. Not a big winner. Jameis Winston, nope. So I mean, there are some misses here. There are some big misses here. So, Michael Vick made the playoffs multiple times in his rookie year. Yeah, I know he did. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying about Michael Vick is Michael Vick was a different type of player that the NFL had never seen. He was the prototype for Lamar Jackson, for a Cam Newton, guys who could run. I mean, even dare I say it, even though I don't think that he's a franchise quarterback, Baker Mayfield, guys who can run, guys who can take off, and guys who can get that first down, guys with the ability to be a runner and a passer. So, I don't have anything against him. Okay, so $20 million a year. If you have $46 million and you're getting rid of multiple players this year that you're going to drop for their contracts in order to fit in Chase, you still have $46.9 million right now. So if it's going to cost you $20 million a year for Chase, then you still have $26.9 million before you make any roster cuts in order to fill out your card. If you get Chase Daniel, or if you get Chase Young, you are automatically a great defense. And what is that worth? And then you're going to have to suck it up. You're not going to get Chris Jones, most probably, but you can shore up the tackle position. Again, Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, and Zach Pickens they're not unfavorable. They're not bad. So you have some options. You're not stuck without. You're not going to be put in a situation. So be overall in good shape. So, I'm super excited. I'm super excited about what the season's going to bring. But it should be noted that we keep doing it over and over and over again, and it never works. So maybe it is time to hold on. But you know what I mean? I don't know. We need a wide receiver. So you fill that slot in with a rookie, Marvin Harrison Jr., or whomever it is that you end up getting. Um, you know, Sunquil has an idea here. Bring back Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd didn't do very much for Chicago. He wasn't great for Chicago. And then as soon as he moved on, just erupted and had a great time. So do you really think Waldron would move family to Chicago to coach a dude who can't pass? I don't know how to respond to nonsense, so I don't know how to I don't know how to reply to silliness. Even if you consider that Justin Fields doesn't make the pass that you want him to make, he still completed 62% of his passes for the year. And most of that was because he had poor coaching in the fourth quarter that had him coming from behind and doing things that he was not good at. Generally speaking, if you looked at him during the first and second and third quarters, he was around a 70% passer. So when you say that, it's crazy to me that we're having that discussion because you're either not paying attention or you're being guided by nonsense, in my opinion. And my opinion is that Luke Getsy failed to utilize Justin Fields to his strengths and created a quarterback who could not do the job that you or even me would like to see done because he was not being coached the right way. And I don't know what would happen. Matter of fact, the best thing that I can say is the best thing that I can say is maybe him moving on is the best thing for him because he'll be playing for a team that wants his talents and will utilize his talents in the proper format. I mean, I'm going to go back to a couple years ago. Lamar Jackson got embraced. The only reason that Lamar Jackson had the success level that he had, and it should be said, is because Greg Roman and John Harbaugh embraced what he could do, and they organized their entire offense based around his talents. Luke Getsy tried to organize Justin Fields around the offense that he wanted to run and tried to get Justin Fields to do what he wasn't comfortable or as comfortable doing as he could or should have been. And that ended up costing this team an entire season. They got wasted on a 7-10 record when in fact this was probably a 12-5 or a 13-4 type team if they had been prepared for the season to start and if they had closed out games the way that a normal team should close out games. So, there was a lot working against the Bears this year. Most among them were the coaching staff. The coaching staff was just horrible. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. For me, for Fields or Caleb, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Like I said, I don't care if it's Caleb Williams. I don't care if it's Justin Fields. I don't care if we trade down and end up with JJ McCarthy. I think that anybody who's a first round quarterback in this league has a shot of being a quality guy. So it doesn't really matter. And that Getsy got conservative. That bum started the 4-minute drill coming out of halftime, even when trailing, and that was horrible. And guys, anybody who's not seeing that doesn't even are you even a fan? Coming out of the third quarter, what you're supposed to do, the ideal setup for you to be a cutthroat, take no prisoners, kill them sort of team is you get the ball and you make sure that you run the clock and you get down with the offense in the second quarter. And of course, you defer so that you can get the ball in the third quarter. And at the end of the second quarter, going into halftime, you score and you make your points. And then in the third quarter, you get the ball back and you score again. Those 2 points right there, that's a 14-point swing in any game. You do that right there. If you do barely anything else the rest of the game, you do that right there successfully, you're going to win most of your ball games because you're controlling a 14-point swing moment in a game. And if you do that, you're going to have success. Well, guess what? We didn't do any of that. We didn't do any of that. So, I mean, that's Luke Getsy. That's treating this that's respecting your team. You're not playing to your strengths. If you're not playing to your strengths, all you're doing is allowing your weakness to manifest. And I don't want to use Confucius kind of BS, but I mean that's true. If you're not doing the game, if you're not playing the game, if you're not using your talent the way that the way that it exists and to its best use, then what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? So, and I don't know, by the way, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be Justin Fields. I don't know if it's going to be Caleb Williams. We're going to find out soon enough. We will know. It won't take very long before the hat gets tipped. When you think somebody like what Brett Albright said, that they're going to take Caleb Williams with the number 1 pick, maybe he might. So clearly Getsy did the best he could, calling 3 screens in a row. When they came out after that game and they said, "Oh yeah, we just we thought that was going to be the best thing," like that. They said that and they used words to explain it, and Matt Eberflus defended it. So I mean, guys, you take what you will from this, but you guys watched it. You can't make this shit up. You can't make it up. That really happened. So will he, or do you hate Justin Fields that much? Yeah, it should be all about winning. And if the team feels like, by the way, here's the thing. It's about the Chicago Bears. If the Chicago Bears feel that Justin Fields gives them the best chance to win, you should support him. If they feel that Caleb Williams gives them the best chance to win, you should support him. No matter what, you should be supportive of him. If you ask me my opinion, I would like to see Justin Fields get one more. I would like to see Justin Fields run it back one more time, because I think there was a lot of untapped potential that, when tapped, turns Justin Fields into a much better player overall. And I would like to see that development, and I would like to see that diamond emerge. But I don't care. Like, again, look, bring in Jaden Daniels. I don't care. Bring in Drake May. I don't care. Bring in JJ McCarthy. I don't care. They just should be better than the current product. And I know the coaching staff feels to me like it's going to be better than the current product. But, we're going to have to see it in play. We should recognize that they were not ready when the season started. There's a lot of things that did not work well with this team that I hope are going to work well going into the future. So, but that's just my opinion. So, with that, I'm going to dip out. So you guys have a great day, and bear down, Chicago Bears. I really think that the Bears are going to look, no matter what, the Bears are a playoff team. No matter what, the Bears have a shot at the Super Bowl just by virtue of getting into the playoffs. Will they be able to execute when that matters? Will they be ready for the postseason? I feel like they play better at the second half of the season. I feel like that's Matt Eberflus's style, to get better as the season progresses. So I think that that's a good sign. Even in the loss against Green Bay, when you're calling stupid plays and you're letting Luke Getsy destroy your chance to win, like, why not let Justin Fields just air it out and throw it? But, I mean, it's just ridiculous. But Scroll says, okay, yeah, people keep saying build the team like San Francisco, but when was the last time they won a Super Bowl? Well, so Scrolls, that's not really what they're saying. What they're saying is that the hack is build an elite defense and then just plug and play a draft quarterback. And that's the cheat code for getting to the Super Bowl in the NFL. And they're saying that because of Patrick Mahomes. They're saying that because that's exactly what they did. Now it's just being applied to San Francisco, and San Francisco is looking better. And you're thinking that, maybe they've got a chance to make the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. Picking a kid out of the draft. And he's taking you to the Super Bowl by virtue of an elite defense. But look, I mean, Brock Purdy performed. So what they're saying is kind of ridiculous to me. And I think that they're just doing that because they're trying to point to an example that's stupid. The example of doing that, would be the Kansas City Chiefs. That's who it should be. Isn't the Bears in that position? Yes. And in fact, here's the funny thing, Scrolls. No matter what you or I think, the Bears are in that position with Justin Fields or with Caleb Williams. So you can take some of that out of the equation because it still exists that Justin Fields is under a rookie contract. So the cheat code, if that is in fact true, still exists on this team. Anyway, that's my time. You guys bear down, and I got to go. You guys have a good day, and we will see you again very, very soon.